have residents, or not residents, but employees that work here. In fact, in years past, we've had officers, for example, that live far away, that would come in and they need a place to stay. They need a bedroom. They're willing to rent a bedroom, and no better place than to have, a town employee being able to take advantage of a lower cost rent, the same as we also, or a school teacher that's in the area just getting started. I think that preference if we're going to go with some sort of subsidized rental, it should be, towards a town employee or another public employee, such as a school district person who needs to use it. And of course, then some discretion can be given and to get them started here for a year or something like that. So that would be, more along the lines of than trying to get every penny that we can get out of it. That's my view. Plus, having the people in town is actually a better thing for us. Sorry.
Sure. Okay. So I think that while on the surface, it sounds like a grand idea. We've got a house, it's not being used, residential property, quote unquote. I think that if you start to really put the deal together, it will be very difficult to rent to a private individual or a family. The house is on public land. The park has, as Vice Mayor Wiest indicated, closing times, no entrance after dusk. And so what happens if they have friends that want to come over and they enter at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock? And so there's unintended consequences that would have to really be looked at in detail. And so I think that on the surface, it sounds like a great idea and a possible revenue enhancement stream. We are, later on in the agenda packet here, going to hopefully approve the good work that Community Services Director has done and the Park and Rec people have done to hire the master plan consultant, and that all of the uses in the park, of which the Watchman's House is part of, should be taken into consideration. At one point we were talking about maybe relocating the preschool into the facility. There would need to be some remodeling done to make it more usable, but the good things are is that it has a secure yard area for play for the children. It would be an easier ingress, egress, drop off to all the little children rather than driving all the way through the park, all the way to the back, and creating more traffic that way. So those kinds of things. And I don't want to get ahead of myself here because the master plan consultant for the park is on the agenda later, and they're very, very qualified, and I'll let our staff make that presentation. But anyway, so the direction for, in my estimation, is that we need to, maybe we need to kind of flesh out Councilmember Dottie's idea about legalities of potentially renting it to a private individual, flesh out the concept of maybe doing subsidized housing or renting out rooms. We need an operator for that, and then fold it into the master plan.
As I mentioned, presently it's in the master plan as a potential venue, and the master plan consultant would evaluate it in terms of its potential use. As the master plan evolves, the council will have several check-in opportunities along the way, and if the direction or consensus of the council changes with respect to the house over time, you can certainly do that. And in the interim, I'd be happy to look into some of those other opportunities.
Well, I think there were 3 council members said please look into them, and one maybe look into it, right?
I don't think he said 3.
I thought the Vice Mayor Wiest said that he advocated the rental, but of course he recognizes that there are issues with it. So I don't, right? Did I put words in your mouth?
No, I mean, if renting is an option. I think we have to make sure that our legal means are covered and seeing how are we going to be able to write a lease with limitations on it that says, you know, the park closes, how can we restrict the number of people, or can we? And that's
Well, it's a private residence.
The closing time never applied to the private residence.
based on public land.
But the private residence was always part of, he was the park superintendent.
Yeah,
He was the park supervisor,
I
so.
didn't actually hear consensus in terms of we should rent it out tomorrow.
No one said that, but said, please look into it.
And that I'm certainly happy
Great.
to do. I don't want to go into any further discussion because
Right,
it's.
thank you, it's not on the agenda. Right.
So, I have one other comment about the manager's report, and it has to do, Lieutenant, sorry. The police report indicated that in July, the month of July, 31 days, there were 1,419 house checks, vacation checks. Now, 31 into 1,400 is like 45 checks a day. That's an enormous amount of house checks. And so could you just, it was just a one line in that report, and it raised more questions than I had answers for. Can you kind of elaborate on what those house checks look like? Are they, they're not individual houses, it's repeat houses, right?
So yeah, a lot of them are repeat houses. So somebody goes on vacation for, we'll just say 2 weeks to make it easy. And we'll go twice a day, and usually once in the day shift, once in the night shift, and we'll drive by, we'll pick up the paper. If the paper's out, if they haven't canceled the paper, we'll just look around, make sure everything looks okay, and then we go about our business. So
it's kind of in your routine of doing drive-throughs of the town,
Yes.
but you kind of make it direct to those houses to get out of the vehicle and go up and check the door, make sure it's locked, or do a perimeter check or anything like that?
So we don't actually get out of the car and go check unless something we'll say piques our suspicion to where we think to get out and do that. But sometimes there are vehicles on the property that we're not aware of, because usually when somebody fills out a vacation house check form, they'll tell us, you know, gardeners are supposed to be there on Monday. So if we show up on Wednesday and there's vehicles out front and they're just not supposed to be there, then we'll spend some time there running the plate, seeing that the people are, making sure they're okay to be there, and then move on or deal with it as needed.
Okay, thank you. It's a great service for our Atherton residents that our police are really your eyes and ears when you're gone. But you do have to let them know, and your alarm has to be set. And typically, these houses are tied into the alarm system at the
Most are, yes,
station, right?
come directly into the police department.
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
And Madam Mayor, with respect to the city manager's report, before you move off of that, I do have a comment on the consent agenda when you reach that.
Okay.
Concludes the city manager's report.
Okay. So, item number 7 is the Community Roundtable Organization Report. We don't have one of those tonight. So we go to our consent calendar, items 8 through 13. Typically, the items on the consent calendar are routine in nature and generally considered in one motion and adopted by a single vote of the City Council. However, any member of the public or council may wish to pull a consent item for minor comments or for further discussion later on in the meeting. It's helpful to move our meeting along more expeditiously if all of our council members take time prior to the meeting to get some minor questions answered by staff. So at this time, are there any members of the public who would like to pull or have a comment on items 8 through 13? I'll bring it back to council. Any members of the council wish to pull an item?
I'd like to make a comment on 13.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm just gonna make a comment on 12.
Okay, comment, anyone else? Okay, would you like to make those comments now?
Yeah, I spoke to the city manager. He said I should bring this up. On the transportation traffic studies that are going to be done with regards to the EIR for Carton Field, they list a series of traffic intersections where they're doing counts, and I did note that one of the one that is the actual entrance to the school is not on the list. And so I would think that if they're doing traffic counts, that they actually should add El Camino and Encinal, because that's the entrance to the school. It makes no sense to be doing traffic counts at all these other locations for activities when actually a lot of the parking actually goes through that entrance, and they snake around the side of the campus to get to the back parking, which is open for athletic events. So I did speak with the city manager, and as I said, he suggested I bring that up, and maybe we could provide that feedback and put that in the add Encinal and El Camino Real as a mandatory traffic checkpoint. Thank you. That was it.
Okay, so, should we pull that and then, or can we just add it?
I actually, when speaking with Councilmember Whitmer, I further spoke with our planning manager, Neil and Lisa, and we're gonna make sure that that gets articulated within
So
our study.
if we approve this, first amendment to the agreement, we just want to make sure that that's included.
There was a catch-all clause in there, we'll just make sure that that's clarified as part of it.
Very good, thank you very much. Okay, Vice Mayor, please.
Related to item number 12, the town manager and myself have already talked about this. Really just asking for a line of clarity related to if the funds are not spent, that those funds will be back or kept in the general fund, and if in fact it's after each year, they would ask for new funds for the following year.
That's correct. With any new budget, it's a request every year. With this particular item, we're planning on putting it in every year as a amount for emergency preparedness activities and use.
Okay, so if they don't spend it, if they only spend $1,000 of it.
It's right back into the general fund.
They lose it
unallocated
for that
balance.
year, it
Correct.
doesn't build up and accrue.
Correct.
Okay, is that okay with everyone?
Nor do we spend it just to spend it.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
All right. I have just a couple of comments on the minutes, which is pretty boring. But, and then let me just make the comments. If you look at the minutes, are we still missing August 7th minutes? City Clerk? I don't think they were in my packet, August 7th, which was our study session. Okay, we'll get that next time. So June 19th minutes, section 21, in the selection of vice mayor. The motion reads that the motion passed 3-1 with Whitmer against. There were 5 of us at that time, and I think that Councilmember Whitmer abstained and Councilmember Dobby was against. So I think that needs to be corrected. And again, in the June 19 minutes, item 10 on page 7 of 7, there's no record in the minutes of the motion that was made. So City Clerk was going to research that and make sure that that's included in the minutes for the record. And then July 17th minutes, item 14, the record of the motion is not completely accurate. And because there was a first motion made to adopt the ordinance, and then there was an amendment, and then the vote on the underlying motion. So City Clerk said that she was going to correct that. But in talking with City Manager about these errors, they were sensitive, so felt that we needed to bring them out into public. Okay? With those comments, can I call for a motion to approve item the consent calendar?
So moved. I'll
Okay.
second.
Councilmember Dobby made the motion, Councilmember Whitmer made the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
No abstentions? No opposed? Okay, we'll go on to our public hearing, item number 14. Which is our amended town master fee schedule. This item first came before council at the regular meeting where members of the public heard the report from Capital Accounting Partners and had an opportunity to speak. That was in our July meeting. Council continued the item and made no decision on it at that time until we wanted more information. And at our study session, August 7th, Capital Accounting Partners came and gave a more detailed presentation. So now we are conducting a public hearing on this matter. And I'm going to turn it over to our Finance Director, Robert Barron III, to give the staff report, and we'll have discussions.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council and the public. Yes, back in June, the user fee study was presented to the council. It was then requested that staff return in August, and we do a study session to go over the master fee schedule in detail. Our master fees last were updated in 2009, 2010. So the council embarked in having a consultant, Dan Eds of Capital Accounting Partners was a consultant that helped us look at our master fee schedule and see where our fees were at. At the study session on August 7th, we looked at, presented and discussed the main components of the master fee study, which was the cost allocation plan, the hourly rate calculation, and the user fee study. Most of the discussion revolved around the establishment of the fees design, and most of the fees were designed for full cost recovery were appropriate amongst our departments. Most of the fees, as was discussed, were set at full cost recovery. Some of the fees are, however, were set below, such as for planning. Some fees that were set below cost recovery were done so to encourage compliance and to account for customer service hours for applicants and for processes. So of the fee study, as we went through, we identified and discussed that there was a couple components that we identified. And two components dealt with a technology surcharge and a general plan update surcharge. The technology surcharge would be prorated to the engineering department, building department engineering fees. This surcharge is for improvements for the technology aspect, for building permits, for planning, for upgrading our systems, for future automated to make it more viable for projects, for building projects, planning projects. The other component was the general plan update that cities are required to do every so many years, every so many 5 years, to do a general plan update. This surcharge will be attached to the building permit fees. So these surcharges will be set aside as the fees are charged. They'll be set aside. So as we embark on updating and improving our technology apparatus, that will come out of that surcharge, not out of the general fund. And the same thing for the general plan update. When we have to do the update, that fund would be set aside and it would come out of that surcharge fee, and again, not out of the general fund. The other primary areas of discussion were with the building department, building fees. One of the things that we've identified were some flat fees that were identified for the building department. Some of those fees range from pools, patios, gazebos, re-roof permits, uninhabitable space. So we came up with a flat fee component to the building fees. The other component of the building permit that was discussed was the service requirement factor that the building department uses to charge for the recovery of our cost of service for the building permit process. So that factor, those fees increased 10% to 10.4% for full cost recovery for the building department as far as the permit application, the process based off of the requirement of the square footage of the building. So as we went through the August 7th study session, a council, along with staff and our consultant, went through the components of the study. We relayed that on our user fees, we recommend that we get full cost recovery on our fees where applicable, and we have recommending in our fees in the appendixes based off of the recommendations through the fee study. So before you is a recommendation and adoption of the fee resolution, which will formally set our fees for the town's all town department services for this fiscal year. Staff suggests that we return at the end of every fiscal year based off of through our budget process, whether our fees are set at the correct rate or bring them back and adjust them accordingly. One suggestion is to set up the fees with a consumer price index increase However, staff feels that if we bring this back every year, if we monitor it, if we have a base of establishing our fees with this comprehensive study, that we feel that every year, if we bring this back, we can ensure that we're recovering our costs appropriately and going forward. So with that, if there's any questions regarding it?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So does any member of the council have a technical or clarifying question for Robert at this time, before I open it up for public comment? Okay. So does any member of the public wish to speak on this agenda item for our amended town master fee schedule? If not, I'll bring it back to council and for discussion. Councilmember Dobby?
I have no comment.
Okay.
I've got a few comments, and as you know, I dialed into that meeting to cast my votes for the parcel tax, et cetera, but I couldn't stay for the full meeting, plus hopefully the technology fee is going to pay for a phone system here where actually if somebody dials in, they can actually hear. However, that wasn't the reason I dropped off, but it was one of them. Okay, I got a few comments. First off, with regards to the CPI versus looking at the fee schedule, you know, I just, and I was trying to follow your comments. My input on that is I don't think that just administratively jacking them up by CPI is fair, because you really have to look at where your costs are. That's what this is all, supposed to be about. And we are finding, as we've found, you know, that we're actually doing less inspections in certain areas and more there, and as such, we're adjusting it. So just arbitrarily, you know, maybe we got it right this time, maybe we didn't, but I think arbitrarily just saying we're rising at 2.3% is unfair. Plus, as you know, being a finance guy, there's like 25 different aspects of the CPI, many of which don't have anything to do with the operation of the town, like buying diamond rings and refrigerators. So I don't think that that's really a fair assessment. I do think that, I noticed it from the first review of this schedule, which was in June, which I did attend that meeting and was well prepared for, and to where we are today. Some of the changes occurred, you know, specifically one in a case that one of our residents spoke very passionately about, was the fee assigned to the uninhabitable space. And while I agreed with her that we should drop the fee, it dropped dramatically. I spoke with city manager, he said we were going to relook at it. But I think really the overall valuation for new homes, remodeled homes, and then the uninhabitable portions, I think, really should be relooked at, because it doesn't look like it's been fairly spread out. So that'd be an area I would want to focus on in the future when you come back and revisit that, so I'll get my comments on records. Lastly, in the fee schedule for the park, I did speak with the city manager, and I noticed that there were the fees, and I spoke to him and said, I've talked several times over the last 2 or 3 years when we've talked about having events in the park, that I think that it's unfair for Atherton residents to be footing 100% of the bill for non-residents to use the park, or corporations, nameless corporations that come and take up all the parking and take over the spots. And that there should be a fee differential. And the city manager mentioned to me that, well, you know, at the last time we looked at the weddings in the park, it was estimated to be 30%, and I wanted to go on record, and he suggested I bring this up, that I think that 30% is not enough. I think it should be something higher. And if we want to have a different rate for corporations that are all non-residents, that should be something as well, because, you know, these large corporations do bring a fair number of people to the park and essentially take over either the meadow or some other, you know, the whole pavilion, and they kind of spill out. And I think that that's an issue, and they do take up the parking, and so our residents can't use it. So I would like to see the city staff consider looking at other towns and find what is a fair or reasonable differential and segment corporations as well as individuals for this activity. And that is my other comment. The rest of the, I'm sorry I missed the meeting, but it looks like a lot of those things didn't change, and I was happy with it. Thank you.
Okay. Right there.
I know that you're working on the basement undeveloped space, and I know that we're gonna get there. And I just wanna say, I mean, our goal here is to break even, and I'm glad that the study was very thorough, and we're trying to please as many people as possible, but the goal is to try to make sure we can step forward in the future as well. So, thank you, Mr. Walker.
So, my comments were that the consultant that was hired did a really thorough job of analyzing our costs and explaining how the valuation formula works. It's not it's not something that is the equivalent of the cost of building the house. Actually, it's or the valuation of the house. It's a formula for recovering our costs. I note that many fees have gone down, as was reported that many more fees that had been a variable have been instituted as a flat fee for, say, pools or gazebos and things like that. The analysis showed that our town is currently falling short of about $215,000 in costs of fees that are not being recovered. Now, I've always said that we need to have some customer service oriented free services that are for every resident, not just the builders or the professional developers, anybody like that, but for residents who have a question that want to come into the building department, that they can feel like they can come into the building department and stand before the counter and talk to a planner or talk to a building inspector about something that's pertinent to their residents, or even the arborist, something on a minor issue. So I want to make sure that in the planning section of fee schedule here, that some of those services are being retained on a no-cost basis. That I think it's just part of providing services to our residents. There's one chart in this report on page 20 that shows that the town of Atherton, if they place the highest value on a house, its actual fees would be among the lowest in compared to our neighboring cities. So actually, our fees compared to our neighboring cities are among the lowest. And we have the most, I think if you talk to most, all the builders and people who have been working in this arena and dealing with Atherton, it's the friendliest, the most efficient, and most professional team of service providers to work with. And so I think that given a choice of being building in Woodside or building in Atherton, most people would rather build in Woodside. And so I think that adjusting our fees, the two key components are the technical, what is it called? The technical surcharge, the technology surcharge, which has never been implemented, and we certainly need to start charging that for upgrading our technology. That's one thing that we have fallen behind on in not keeping up with current technology. And I think that that's something that we need to add to our fees in order to start putting away in the reserve. And then also for our general plan update. Our general plan comes around every 5 years or so, and it's $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. And in the past, it's just kind of come straight out of our general fund. It's been a big hit. And so if we can plan, we know it's coming, and we can plan for it. Also the housing element, that's something else, again, that is a big hit every 7 years or so. So I think that we've heard from residents and builders about the uninhabitable space and that it was, you know, it was an unfair amount assessed to it, and we listened to that. I don't know if it went down from $200 to $125. Is that right?
That's correct, and as Robert articulated, we'll be bringing this back to the council in June, and we'll take a close examination of that particular fee. If it needs to be adjusted again, we'll do so. And as Robert mentioned, we don't recommend the CPI either. We do need to bring this back every year because there are some intricacies of the fee structure here that need to be evaluated. And lastly, with respect to events at the park, that's coming back to the council October, is my guess. So we can work on that differential at that point.
And Councilmember Whitmer, I had the same issues with the fee schedule for the park, you know, and I quizzed city manager about that. And I said, so, you know, how do we know that our fees that we've got here are current market rates? And, you know, we've got a little jewel there with our, I mean, there's not many places like Colbert Palmer Park. And if people want to have an event there, I think a premium can be charged. We're hiring a event planner, and hopefully they can bring us current market information to factor in there.
That will be part of
So if there's no more discussion on this, can I call for a motion to approve an amended town master fee schedule?
Sure. I move that we approve the amended schedule and also congratulate the city staff on a job well done.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so I've got a motion from Councilmember Whitmer, a second from Vice Mayor Wiest. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, staff. You really did a great job on this. The next item is on the regular agenda, and it is the Atherton Little League improvements at Colbert Palmer Park. Community Services Director Mike Kashiwagi, I'm going to turn it over to you to give your presentation.
Thank you. Mayor Lewis, members of the City Council, the purpose of this item is to confirm and obtain council direction regarding the scope of the Little League ball field improvements proposed by the Menlo Atherton Little League, to confirm staff understanding and interpretation of the November 2012 ballot results related to the improvements proposed by the Menlo Atherton Little League, and to obtain council direction regarding terms of use and responsibilities which will be incorporated in the facility agreement between the town of Atherton and Menlo Atherton Little League. And just a little bit of background, in August of 2012, council approved placing a measure on the November 2012 ballot regarding improving the baseball field and surrounding areas at Colbert Palmer Park. The resulting vote was 75% in favor of the proposed improvements and 24% against. As part of the project review process, City Council asked Planning Commission to review the proposed improvements by Menlo Atherton Little League and to provide comments and recommendations. Accordingly, over the course of 3 public meetings, the Planning Commission performed an extensive and very thoughtful review of the schematic plans and proposal submitted by the Little League. The Planning Commission thoughts and recommendations were summarized in a report dated July 12, 2013, which was submitted to the City Council. That report is included as attachment E of this staff report. As stated in the report, the Planning Commission supports improvements to the existing field, but believe the improvements proposed by Menlo Atherton Little League are too monumental, too large in scale, and counter to maintaining aggressive character to the park. In addition, the Planning Commission was unanimous in their support for removable fences, scoreboards, and foul poles. Since some of the Planning Commission recommendations represented a fairly significant departure from the project proposed by Menlo Atherton Little League, staff performed a review of the Measure M ballot material to make a determination of improvements which we believe were approved with the passage of Measure M. Staff analysis included reviewing Measure M ballot materials, including the actual ballot language, printed arguments in favor and against Measure M, and the impartial analysis prepared by the Atherton City Attorney. Based upon our review, staff believes passage of Measure M approved construction of the following items. A permanent covered seating for 200 spectators with covered dugouts, permanent 210-foot perimeter fencing and foul poles along both baselines, permanent electronic scoreboard, resurfacing of the existing field, removable outfield fencing, and new restroom facilities. Attachment F of your report presents an itemization and comparison of each planning commission recommendation, along with the Menlo Atherton Little League proposal, staff interpretation of Measure M, and the Menlo Atherton Little League response to the planning commission recommendations. The staff report also lists the primary business points which will be addressed as part of the facility agreement between the town of Atherton and Menlo Atherton Little League, and the intent of staff is to bring that agreement back to council at your regular September meeting for action. And finally, there are a few items that we highlighted in the report, which was contained in the Menlo Atherton proposal, which we would like to get further council direction. The first one was the length of the agreement term. Menlo Atherton Little League requested 20 years. Staff is recommending an initial 10-year term with 2 5-year options. Staff believes this is a fair and prudent approach. On one hand, it provides a level of certainty to the Little League, given the capital investment they're making a commitment to. While at the other hand, at the end of 10 years, this provides the town with the ability to reassess the compatibility of the Little League activities with the town's priorities related to the use of Palmer Park. The other item is the maintenance of the ball field and the facilities. Menlo Atherton Little League proposes they will be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the baseball facility during the exclusive use period. Staff agrees and supports this proposal, which is consistent with the current arrangement between the town and the Little League. The current time when the Little League activities require higher standards of maintenance and experience has shown that it is much more efficient and cost-effective for both Menlo Atherton and the town to continue with this type of arrangement. And then lastly, on the annual user fee, currently the annual user fees are charged on a per-player basis. Staff recommends continuing with the same methodology, but just to note that this fee is based upon the current arrangement of Menlo Atherton providing and maintaining the ball fields during their use period. So if the council decides that they would like to change that, then staff would, of course, have to go back and revisit the actual annual use fees. So this concludes the presentation. However, we do have a representative from Menlo Atherton Little League who also has